I'm meditating or something, you know, or I'm doing some kind of ritual, I may not have like, I may be out of sage, but I will smell sage. And there's none of, you guys know what I'm talking about, or I will
Yeah.
smell Palo Santo, or I will, you know, so I wish we had some kind of way. I think they tried it in movie theaters at some point, like they put some kind of a
They
up
tried it to try to do it with computers that would do it in a digital, but the only thing is they couldn't actually use real scents. They had to use artificial ones in order to get it to be consistent, and that would negate the whole purpose of aromatherapy, using stuff that was artificial.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I studied aromatherapy. There's a lot of things they're trying to do it. I want to speak to a little bit to what Deidra was saying, though. Part of it too also has to do with belief. So I teach screenwriting when I was teaching at Emerson, and you'd have a lot of students would want to write horror or whatever. And one of the things I would say to them is, well, one of the things you have to think about is, what do your characters believe? Because there's a trope in horror that you have someone who's a skeptic, you know, especially when you have a supernatural horror or the occult. There's someone who's a skeptic. Sometimes you have someone who's a scholar that knows all the lore, but they're not a believer themselves, and then they come butt up against the real thing, like in Curse of the Demon or something like that. So it's that, but it's also that a lot of times, for me, some of the most interesting portrayals of magic or the supernatural happen in terms of like magic realism. We're questioning what's real, and what we're seeing is a particular character's worldview or a particular character's experience. It may be that that character is in an altered state of mind. It may be that that character is having an experience that comes from the realm of dreams or somewhere else, or they're having a vision. So sometimes when those things are portrayed in a realistic context, I'm thinking of a really great film called The Navigator. It's also called A Medieval Odyssey, and it's about a family back in the Dark Ages. They're suffering from the plague. They're trying to escape the plague, and this young boy time travels into the future because they think the way that they're going to escape the plague is if they hang this thing on a steep. It's this crazy thing, but the way that his experience of the future is portrayed and his belief system is portrayed, it feels very real. Or I just typed in like The Witch. The reason The Witch, I think, is such an incredible film is that every single thing that happens in it, just about, is completely plausible. And everything that doesn't seem plausible or real is purely a product of imagination, fear, you know, folkloric or legendary sort of belief that is grafted onto what's actually happening. And that's why it works so well, because we see that all the sort of tropes about witches that are in that film that come from actual literature and actual, you know, courtroom testimony and all that stuff, it all works to expand upon what we ourselves might have thought we thought witches were back in the day or whatever, what we still think they are. The idea that this, again, the coming of age thing is a big thing. Not only are the men in the family threatened by Thomason's burgeoning sexuality, her mother is. And I'm not going to spoil the film for anyone that hasn't seen it, and you all should see it, but that confrontation, that conflict, that is enormous and grievous and beautiful and spectacular, and just it's this, I think it so often comes down to these ideas of what the witch means to us as human beings. The fact of the matter is that the witches that were killed as witches back in the day, and even not all that long ago, were human beings. They were not supernatural beings.